we are back at Thurlaston Archery and Airgun Range, and as you can see behind me, we're on their airsoft range, and today we're going to be taking a look at this. This is the Ronin T10 from KWA, and it's an electric recoil AEG that performs really well out of the box. So in the UK, these things retail for about £420 or north of. So not the cheapest replicas, but you do get a lot of gun for your money. So I've got a version 3 KWA gearbox. The external quality is excellent. These replicas are full metal, so that's the upper, the lower, the handguard, the outer barrel, pretty much everything you see, other than the included PTS polymer furniture, which is also really nice added value. You've got the PTS flip-up sights, the front one I've removed to mount a scope cam, but you've got their enhanced polymer stock, which is one of my favourite stocks on the market. There's loads of space for batteries, it's really comfortable, and you can get a really nice cheek weld. And the battery compartment is also super easy to access through this back panel. And then the pistol grip is the EPS enhanced polymer grip. These are, again, they're some of my favourite pistol grips on the market, because I think the angle on them is perfect. It's not too steep, it's not too shallow, and they're just really, really comfortable in the hand. I much prefer these over something like the A2 style grips that you get stock on a lot of different AR pattern rifles. And then what sets this apart from other AEGs is the recoil system. This gun kicks really, really hard, and it's really satisfying to use. That being said, these are really, really heavy replicas. They sit without attachments at about 6.5 pounds, so they are quite hefty. If you prefer a lighter gun, then these maybe aren't for you. In terms of magazines, you get one included. It's the KWA MS120, and these are 120 round mid caps, all polymer, but excellent build quality, and they fit and feed really well in the replica. Now, if you want to buy more of these mags, you can get a pack of 3 for around £50 in the UK, which is pretty good value, I think. Just before we head out onto the range, I want to talk to you guys about this channel's sponsors. First up, we've got Mad Scientist Airsoft, who's an airsoft technician based in the West Midlands, and he can work on pretty much any gun you send him. Andy is a lovely guy and he's really great at what he does, so check him out, links down in the description. The next sponsor of the channel are Keyani Customs, and they are a company that manufacture 3D printed accessories for airsoft. So they make HPA tank toppers, they make magazine accessories, but they also make stands for your replicas like this one. So this is an AR pattern rifle stand. These are really well built and they're a great way to display your replicas. I often get people wondering about the quality of 3D printing, but these things are absolutely bomb proof. Keyani says people can stand on these and they won't break. So let's give it a go. If I can balance. A little bit muddy, but these things are absolutely solid and they are a great way to display your guns and make them look awesome. So definitely check out Keyani Customs, link down in the description as always. But let's get onto the range and sling some plastic. So let's range test this thing. We've got our target set up about 30 meters, got a mag full of 3.2s. There's quite a strong crosswind today and it is bitterly cold. So, I mean, yeah, we'll see how this thing performs in not the most ideal conditions at 30 meters. That wind is really taking them. Yeah, this probably wasn't the best day to do this, but let's keep at it. There's a few hits on target. And we are out. So we've just completed our range test with the Ronin T10, and weather conditions are a little bit challenging today. The wind is quite high and dipping off and then becoming really intense again. So consistency is a little bit of a struggle. This thing performed really admirably though, and once I sort of realised where the wind was mostly coming from and accounted for that, we got a relatively consistent grouping. Now I've run this on multiple game days and even out to those longer ranges, sort of 50, 80 metres plus. It's been very accurate, very consistent and very predictable. But I do want to talk to you about some of my niggly little issues and things that I don't like. Firstly, and I think the big one that most people are going to find a problem with, is the rate of fire on a 7.4. This thing feels so slow and sluggish. So a 7.4, it doesn't have the ass behind it to drive the heavy recoil weight and spring. The way the recoil system on these T10s work, the gearbox spring drives backwards into the buffer tube where there's a big chunky recoil weight that then slams into the back of the buffer tube, and that's what simulates the recoil. Now, the bolt itself, the mock bolt rather, doesn't reciprocate. There's no movement in the bolt at all. So all of the inertia is happening here inside the buffer tube. Compare that to something like a Marui recoil that does have a mock bolt that reciprocates. Those perhaps feel a little bit more realistic because the recoil is coming from the bolt as it would in a real gun. Whereas this thing, all that inertia and movement happens back here. So it does feel like it's coming from a slightly different place. And as I said, perhaps doesn't feel quite as realistic, but this thing does kick really hard and that recoil is super satisfying to use. You can hear how sluggish it sounds on the 7.4, but then we slap that 11.1 in and it just instantly sounds so much snappier, so much higher rate of fire. And you can even see a difference in the recoil between the two. On to my next sort of complaint and issue with the stock gun is if you want to run heavier weights than anything over like a 2.8, so 3.2 and above really, the stock hop rubber is incredibly firm. And it's going to put a lot of backspin on the BB and you're going to get a lot of accuracy and consistency, but it's really going to knock down your FPS. So what I would suggest, and what I've done to this gun, and it's the only upgrade it's had so far, is something like a Prometheus Purple. So those are the two main big issues with this. The rest is sort of niggly little things. The main one out of the two is the fire selector. Now there's a tiny little grub screw that holds the selector in place. And because of the heavy recoil of this gun, that grub screw over time will work loose. And there's been times where it has literally been hanging out the body of the gun. You kind of have to get a tiny little Allen key inside the selector and screw it back in reverse. Now, a drop of Loctite will help alleviate this, and it's more something to be aware of rather than a problem, but I definitely recommend get some Loctite on it and make sure that thing is screwed down because it will work loose over time. My next complaint is to do with the handguard. Now don't get me wrong, I really like the handguard. I think it's really nice, it's slim, you can get a good grip on it, it's got plenty of M-lock points for attachments. This section of Picatinny rail that is part of the handguard, this is solid and permanently mounted, and it's just so far forward. I honestly don't know what anyone is mounting this far forward down the end of the barrel. The next thing I'm going to have a little whinge about is the front of the handguard itself. So as you can see, it's not flush. One side is longer than the other. The top side actually sits flush with where the barrel meets the muzzle device, whereas the bottom protrudes and you've got this quite aggressive cutout here. And now my issue with that is if you want to mount a tracer or a mock suppressor, this part of the handguard will potentially get in the way of that depending on the size of the unit you want to mount. So it will limit your options there unless you get something like a barrel extension. So just a consideration, and again, something I don't like, but it does look cool. It's a unique handguard that has a cool shape to it. And you know, it's different to something like the Geisley, which has become a very sort of standardized look for an M-lock handguard. One thing I do really like though is the muzzle device. I mean, it just looks chunky and beefy and really aggressive. Let's go run some drills with this thing. I recently brought these little chalk reactive targets on Amazon, and I thought they'd be fun to shoot. So let's shoot one and just see what happens. We're going to start simple with a 10-metre bill drill. We are running an 11.1 in this, just for that slightly snappier trigger response and higher rate of fire. But let's get stuck in. So yeah, perfectly happy with the rate of fire and the trigger response on the 11-1 for the bill drill. Nice and easy. Let's move on to something a little more complex. So we're going to go for a drill called a 1 to 5, and that involves 3 targets. Put 1 round left, 2 centre, 3 right, 4 rounds left, and then last 5 rounds into the central target. So let's get stuck in and give it a whirl. Something I feel like might be fun to do is stress test the Keyani Customs stand a little bit more. So we tried standing on it. What if we try shooting at it? Let's see how much damage the T10 is going to do to this thing. As you can see, we have done some damage. There's some slight dents and then some bigger, deeper impacts that are starting to crack and splinter a little bit. This next drill is called Mozambique, and it essentially involves starting at low ready, 2 rounds to the chest, 1 to the head. Go once more on that. And 1 more for good luck. Again, nice snappy trigger response from the 11-1. Really, really improves this gun drastically. So the Ronin T10 did some damage. Let's see what a Golden Eagle gas shotgun will do to it. So this is a 3-round burst, I guess, gas shotgun. They're a clone of the Tokyo Marui. See what it does. As we can see, starting to do a bit more damage to this thing. It's starting to crack and dent. I mean, the shotgun certainly did more than the T10, but I think we can up the ante a little bit. So this is an EG67 fragmentation grenade. So it's an airsoft pyrotechnic. It's got little clay balls in it that fragment, and it simulates a M67 frag. So let's blow it up and see what happens. That actually survived that pretty well. The shotgun definitely did the most damage so far. I think we need to take it up a notch even more. I'll give it some thought. There's a money off code down in the description. Go get yourself some cool shit. That's it for our range day with the KWA Ronin T10. And I think to sum up, if you're after an AEG with recoil, and you've got the budget to spend and you don't want something that needs tons of upgrades out of the box, these are a really solid option. I mean, the external build quality is fantastic. These things are absolutely rock solid. Range and accuracy, perfectly reasonable. The biggest complaints I have are the rate of fire on a 7.4. I just find the gearbox is more prone to locking up, especially on semi-auto. If you're into your rapid double taps, you're gonna get a lot of lockups on a 7.4 with this gun. So really the way to go 100% is 11.1, slap a MOSFET in there. And I would definitely recommend the hot rubber upgrade. I think it needs those upgrades to really, really get the best out of the platform, because it is a fantastic platform and it performs really, really well. But I think as a stock gun, in certain situations, these are great. And I know a lot of people that run these. I see a lot of people with KWA guns generally, and they are excellent, excellent build quality. They're so well made and they're reliable. Although these aren't actually a direct replica of a real steel firearm. Obviously they are an AR pattern rifle, but the handguard design and the trademarks and everything, it is an original design by KWA, whereas something like the Block 3 that I've got from Marui is a replica of the Block 3 M4A1. Depends, do you want to go like the hyper-realism route and get something that is actually a real steel gun, or do you just want something that looks cool, performs well, and is fun to shoot? In terms of picking this thing up in the UK, the best place to go for KWA by far is BZ Tactical. They stock a ton of KWA replicas, accessories and spare parts. BZ are always worth a chat because they don't list everything they stock on their website. So if there's anything specific you need, I would recommend getting in touch with them. That's it for this review. It is an incredible platform. It's a lot of fun to use and I don't think there's much more to say. So get out there and have fun slinging plastic and I will catch you guys in the next video.